Good morning, Pierce.
Can you hear me all right? I'm having more technical issues again.
I think you need like a 3D camera. That way you're always sounded. The way it was always.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're coming through fine.
Okay. Yeah, this seems to work all right. Good. How are you? You well?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Good. All right. Who is this? Someone in their meeting room. Hello, Karina. Looks like it's still muted.
Hello.
Hello. Who do we have here, aside from Sachin?
Thorsten. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, now I can.
Okay.
How are you?
Good.
Came through as Karina, and I thought, I wonder who that is.
Ah, okay. That's from my wife. I understand. I think, yeah, I can.
Didn't remember inviting a Karina, so.
Yeah.
Right. So, just going to give it a couple more minutes here. I think maybe got one or more people coming here. There you are. Good to see your face.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Germany, right?
Yes.
Where?
Not far away from Cologne.
Okay.
So, do you know Cologne? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe 50 miles east Cologne, more in the rural area.
What was the weather like there today?
It's a bit snowy, actually.
Is it?
It's cold at the moment. Yeah. Last week was really, we had really spring weather, but now it's getting cold again.
It's difficult to predict sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday morning. I live in Colorado in the US, and it was yesterday morning. Well, first of all, let me just back this up. Our weather has been actually quite good, like 70s Fahrenheit and all that type of stuff. But yesterday morning, I looked out the window around 6 a.m. and snow was blowing sideways. It only lasted for about 20 minutes, and then it warmed back up again. So it's kind of one of those bizarre weather things.
Yeah.
That's probably kind of loud, isn't it? That slurp.
Pardon?
I'm wearing a mic here. That slurp was probably kind of loud, huh? Maybe I need a straw.
Okay.
Sipping my coffee. Right. Hey, we have a guest here. Orman.
How far away are you from Denver?
Takes me about an hour to get there.
Okay. What part of exactly, what city are you in, or what's the nearest city?
I'm in Fort Collins, which is northern Colorado. Hello, Orman. Are you there?
Yeah, my girlfriend's got a friend in Colorado. She's gonna visit, and she's planning on going and staying there for 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
And I'm trying to squeeze in a few days also to get over there if she'll allow me. But we're talking, so that'd be nice to be in Denver, or not Denver, but in Colorado.
Very good. Okay, good. Well, now I'm on the spot. Now, hello, Orman. I invited Orman kind of last minute here, just to see if you wanted to pop in. I'm so glad you did. How are you? Can't hear you. I think you might be muted.
Not muted, but
not muted, just silent.
The malfunction device, I think.
Yeah, still can't hear you. It's always something with computers, isn't it? You're just
blame Microsoft. That's punching back.
Well, so Sechin, you've never met Orman. Torsten, have you?
No.
Okay. Do you know who Orman is?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. He's famous. He's infamous. So yeah, I mean, much of what I do today wouldn't be possible without him. So, and he's just talking away. Orman, let's fix your microphone. Can you hear me? Okay. He's trying. He's trying. See the look.
Sometimes it's a little pesky button somewhere. Sometimes it's
probably.
Sometimes it's some things I'm setting on Pierce's side, which I don't think it is because it's Zoom.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let me look here. But now it gives me the option to mute you, Orman, but not to unmute you. So
maybe try mute and unmute. That might fix it sometimes.
Can you go down to your settings? I think down in the lower left corner, and there is a microphone icon. Click on the arrow next to it, and see if you can switch to a different microphone on your system, perhaps. For me, I've got there you are.
You hear me now?
Yeah, right. Hello.
So guess what, you made a fortune as a hacker. Very serious.
Can't figure out that.
That's what you probably do anyway, isn't it? Go on, surprise us.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks for joining. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Good long time no see. Are you any older since the last time I saw you?
I am. I'm exactly a year.
About 700 years older. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so you sent the invitation, so I'm here. I think to myself, what is Mr. Pierce up to now? Because whatever it is, it's bound to be good. So I thought, well, I sent everybody home quickly. I had some people here, and I thought, that's it. I've had enough of them. I'm going to go and see what you're up to out there in the big American universe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Hello, Joshy, is it Joshy or? I'm sorry, I got me.
We've got Sachin and then Mike, right? That's your email name.
Yeah, Mike. Yes.
Mike. Okay.
Mike.
Sachin and Mike.
Yes.
What do you mean? What do you mean email name?
Oh, now you're
I see. Oh, right. Okay. All right. Okay. Don't worry. Leave it. We've got to be free from it,
Yeah. Right.
If anything is real and works, it stands for itself, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does in my book, anyway. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Say it belongs to Harry or Fred makes no difference at all. Fact is, when you come up against it, it's whether or not you are big enough to deal with it, or you're not. And if you're not, you have to stand under it. And in moments like that, one wishes you've got enough humility to be able to do so if it's the right kind of thing. At least that's how I feel. I'm sorry, I'm not helping you, am I? Go on, I'll shut up.
No.
I came here to hear what you've got to say. So,
yeah. So Sachin disappeared. I was going to ask, what did you make of the last week's meeting?
Excuse me.
Well, I think, I'm still in my discover mode. Still trying to figure out, basically still trying to figure out what Eminent Way is all about and what the plan is and what we do or what they intend. I think the biggest thing that I figured out is that I think I have a long way to go. That's the most important part, and I'm always interested in how people get kind of caught up sometimes, and how easy it is to get caught up myself. How easy it is to, form thoughts and form opinions and be very rigid about them, and how easy it is to not get the context of something and and how easy it is to quickly make a judgment, and how quickly it is to express an opinion, how like we have 4 people today, and then 2 of them I think you invited, and so nobody showed up. Like first event was.
Well,
30.
no. This is a by invitation only meeting.
Got it.
Yeah.
This is more
Yeah.
like. This is
It was
more like.
Yeah, are you going to tell us that we are the only 3 that you actually know?
No, it's just
All
I
right.
think yeah. The 3 that I think I felt, and there was one more that he couldn't make it, but yeah, the 3 that I felt kind of the most instinct about would be actually more accurate in that regard. Yeah. Oh no. Right.
How do I get back onto you?
I've still been kind of working into the law of 3 diagram that I had laid out, which is kind of an enhancement of where things were before, at least in my mind. I'd like your additional thoughts on that in a moment, Sachin, if that's gone anywhere for you. But before that, I'd like to ask Mike, what are you on about lately? This is the first time we're meeting. We've chatted via emails here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's new in you?
Well,
Is that a piano behind you?
pardon?
Is that a piano behind you or a desk?
No, that's a desk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like probably.
From here.
What I'm on about, well, I'm more in the kind of a devotional aspect of things. So to surrender to things, to go a little bit deeper in myself. It's not easy to say it just in a few words or so. I mean, we haven't met yet, yeah. So
when you say surrender, what does that mean, right? And because I think especially in a term like that, it's important to be specific about what you wish to surrender to, right? Because there are so many things in the world that would absolutely love you to surrender to. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I know that's not
Absolutely.
what you're referring to.
No. This is not what I'm referencing to. Things higher than planetary. That's in the area of surrender. So there are essences, forces, beings there, and to make actual connection to them and not just fantasy things or
Do you think it's possible?
Wishy. Pardon?
Do you think it's possible to surrender to higher than planetary things before one surrenders to the planetary condition as a first premise?
Absolutely. But you are asking what I'm actually on about.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. Sure. Yeah. Of course. Now that's sure. That's the first thing. To what's going on here. Yeah. And get a good grasp of what's going on here. And that's another thing. Yeah. But I'm as you asked before, so what I'm on about is, so I've in the last, I would say, I don't know, 10 years, what is it, 21, 11, 12, yeah. I think in the last 10 years, I was wondering to get, I mean, we're always talking about personal development, okay? Yeah, so that's a huge subject. And what I was looking after was how is it possible to get, in a way, the machine working? And there's so many things which prevent of doing that, because it's like a rusty, crusty machine in the beginning. And I'm looking actually for decades, I can say, into the 63-point development chart and from Leo, and I found out that there are certain levels where I have really holes or gaps or really things which aren't really working in myself. And especially in the last 10 years, I was looking of how can I get in deeper into that to actually get the system working. So that's in really, I mean, I haven't said anything yet, but
yeah. So, okay. It's funny because this is actually something I was writing about just this morning and yesterday as well. But I was writing out an analogy of kind of imagining that a primitive tribe in the jungle suddenly stumbles across an airplane and what they would make of it, right? At first, it's just this unknown object, and then some clever person among them is able to pop the door open, and they look inside and they see that it's hollow, and they figure, well, since it's hollow and it's rainproof and all that type of stuff, why don't we store all of our food in here? And so they do that, right? And then many, many years later, another clever tribesman is looking and notices that it's got wheels and devises a method whereby instead of the tribe having to go to, store food and that type of stuff in the airplane, they could drag it from place to place, hook it up to animals or whatnot, drag it around, right? So it's so much more convenient at that point. Continuing on this analogy, at some distant point in time in the future, someone discovers that if they press certain buttons in the right order and pull certain levers in the right order, that you don't need to hook it up to animals. It'll actually drive itself. And you can drive it around without having to, tie things to it to pull it along. But they still don't understand, even at this stage, as advanced and as powerful as that capability becomes for them, they don't understand that it's an airplane, right? That it was designed for something else entirely. It wasn't designed to be driven around like a car or to, store vegetables in or whatnot. You follow, right? It was designed to fly. And that's actually much like the human complex itself, right? It's designed for something higher than the way that it's used. Think for a minute, just about all the damage, and I'm going somewhere with this. I need to straighten this rock. It's going to trick me. Think for a minute that just what the culture does to us, right? Even the fact of watching television, where our brains, in our head, our brains are meant to follow a course of thought from start to its completion, right? In a nice, cool, collected way. And if you watch TV and are kind of observant of yourself as you watch TV, you'll notice how much friction and how much heat is caused only because every 3 seconds or so, the scene changes, right? And again, and again. And then you've got commercials that are even more, much higher frequency coming at you. It's damaging. And, it's damaging, especially to the thinking center, although the damage trickles down into all the others. And the reason why is because, if someone has a traumatic brain injury and part of their brain, like for instance, that is dedicated to processing language, speech and whatnot, gets damaged, well, it's not long before other parts of the brain begin to try to compensate, and they try and kick in, right, to compensate for that damage. And perhaps they start using the visual side or visual centers of their brain to actually do language, something it was never really designed to do, but it can do it. Maybe not as well as the language centers, but it still can. It tries to compensate. And so this is how this trickle-down effect happens throughout all of our machinery, because something comes in, has a damaging effect on the thinking center. Well, what's going to happen is that, at that point in time, the moving center is going to come in and say, hey, I can handle this in the meantime, right? The thinking center of the brain, whatever you want to call it, is in a state of emergency. It doesn't know how to handle this, doesn't think this type of speeds and whatnot belongs to its frequencies. And it gets damaged, right? And so then other parts of the system begin to do that, but they're not really designed to do that. And so that depletes their energy, which means that they then have to steal energy from other centers and so on and so forth. And so it's such a cascade effect. But I'm really of the impression, the place that I'm going with this is that you're talking about things like, connecting to influences, essences, attendances beyond planetary level, and the 63-point development chart and all that. But where I'm at is that this pentagram, this first, issue needs to be running properly before any of that's even possible. And this is the want to jump ahead, the want to, it is very, very attractive. And listen, I'm not saying that attendances and those types of things cannot happen when the pentagram is damaged, misaligned, whatever the case may be. But if you're not careful with it, it actually tends to come across more like a God force. What I mean by that is that we are capable of having a conscious perception of all of the planets in this solar system, and even higher. Not as gods like the ancients did. The ancients were aware of Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Saturn. They were aware of those as actual conscious influences, presence, right? But to them, because they didn't have the equipment at that point in time to deal with that level of consciousness, it became interpreted in their system as gods. Yeah. Now we actually have the ability to connect to planetary forces, to solar forces, to star level forces, and so on and so forth. But unless the foundation is actually working properly, then it's going to be interpreted as something else to the systems. Does that make sense? I don't mean to burst the bubble with it, and I don't know where you are in kind of your order of development or that type of stuff. Like you said, we've never met before.
Yes, well, I totally agree, and that is
I'm curious.
years.
I'll ask you something.
Sure.
Me?
No.
Mike.
How do you pronounce your name? Karina?
Mike.
Mike.
It's Mike. Yeah, Mike. Yes.
Mike. Okay, Mike. What do you mean by the 63 steps of development? What do you mean? You said that you have problems with some of them. I mean, which ones exactly do you have problems with?
Not problems.
Or you couldn't come to terms with? I can't remember your exact words. What you actually said is the 63 steps.
Yes.
What you actually said was the 63-step development thing from Leo.
The 63-point development chart from Leo from 1989. Yes.
Development point.
From 1989. That's why I'm talking. The 9 big columns, and then the seven levels of each column.
All right.
This one here. This chart.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and it starts with something like subhuman behavior, what I would call from my groundwork as a moon level thing. Then it says like the column 2, 3, and 4, yeah, which is like domestic human behavior, non-arrested human behavior, which I would, from my groundwork, see as a planetary development.
Okay, I got you. Fine. Thanks.
Then the thing about...
I was more curious about which bits you actually had a problem with.
No, that's not the... I don't.
Oh my God.
Yeah?
You never stop. Sorry about this. I do apologize. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Life always happens. Well,
okay. It's not, yeah. So that's what I'm referring to. And what I'm saying is that I found certain, I mean, there is then the commentary of what Leo did to all these steps. And I don't know, do you know this, the chart? Piers?
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah. And then there's the commentary of what Leo did in that meeting, yeah? And he describes all the levels. And there are things where it's not that I have problems with that. It is where I could feel, and where I resonate, that there are things which are not, as you described it now with the pentagrammic system, things not working quite well. Okay. Yeah. So, and that's the thing. So, and I saw, okay, there are these, I would say, holes or things not yet perceived, not yet developed in a way, yeah, not yet really done. And that's the thing about, especially about those steps 2, 3, and 4, which I will call are more to do with the planetary. And that's what you say, the foundation. Yeah. First, you need to have that foundation before going to something else.
Here's the thing. Let me ask you. You're familiar with the ray of creation, right? Moon, planet, so on and so forth. Yes, and the order of laws. What do you think humanity as a whole? How many laws do you actually suppose humanity as a whole are under? Is it 48 planetary laws because it's part of the thin film of organic life on the planet, or is it more or less?
What was the question? Is the humanity?
Humankind as a whole.
Humankind as a whole, as a consciousness. Or what?
As an organism. Look,
it should be. It should be in the 48 levels of course, yes. It should be. But are they?
Yeah. Okay, elaborate on that. Are they? Are they?
No.
No, of course not. They're
no.
At least 96, if not, the dark growing into the moon, which is more, right? 192.
Absolutely. Now, absolutely. I agree.
What does it actually take to just fall under 48 laws? Because listen, that is an extraordinary thing. If all of humanity, if humanity as an organism on the planet is not under planetary laws, but is actually under more laws, what would that actually look like if someone were to just make that jump? Because that is a halving, isn't it? A halving, right, of the number of laws or orders of magnitude that someone is under. So you weren't here because I didn't give you the invitation, or didn't get you the invitation, but Sachin can talk about how we went through the various laws last time, right? And do you remember the aspect of the law too? This is going somewhere because I think it might help you. And it doesn't really matter if we're talking about 63 or 48 points or 2 points. The fact is that no matter how many points of development there are, a person has to start somewhere, right? And if you find that you get to a point where things are feeling out of reach, sometimes it's better to just step back and go back through the groundwork. I was in the Eamon for a very, very, very long time. And for me, not as long as Orman. I shouldn't say very long time. For me, it was absolutely useless until I actually started doing the work for myself.
Yes.
I joined as a very young man, and I was fascinated with. I've always had more of an occult leaning in myself, and so anything that had that kind of tingle to it, right? That's what fascinated me. And I used to be better at speaking to people than I am now. And the reason why is because I could bullshit better, right? I was so filled up with all of this, what I thought was knowledge, that what it ended up doing is, instead of impacting my essence, the core of myself, it filled out my personality. Yeah. I was much more kind of charming and charismatic and all that stuff, but it was completely hollow. Inside, I had no idea what the fuck I was talking about. Right?
Can I ask something? Can I ask something? Can I ask something? So,
Yeah.
Are you all current with the Emin now?
Me,
No,
not at all.
No,
Okay.
no, you're not. So you've had a past acquaintance with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not, the Emin is not what it should have been.
Mm.
Okay, for lots of different reasons. However, I think what Pierce is actually trying to put forward here is that some of the works that took place in Emin were designed to reorientate various aspects of things about you so that you had an easier connection to what should have been there in the first place, but because of cultural interference. Now, I'm not saying just this culture, I'm talking about going back through history into the antiquities. There'd be 1,000 different cultures that have lived on this planet that have altered the very nature of what we were originally as to what we are now. Because originally you were designed to be able to do a lot of things that you now can't do. And the reason that you now can't do them is simply because you're not your original design. So things have changed. Now, everybody in the world goes around thinking that they're at fault with this. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe in Judgment Day, as an example. It's bullshit. The fact of it is that this particular culture is even further away from the original self of self than ever before.
Yes.
And because of that, as an example, you are not clairvoyant as a permanent feature in your life. You're not psychic, you're not empathic, you're not mediumistic, you're not developed, as Pierce mentioned, from the centers of activities point of view, because they've been adjusted to accommodate a lifestyle which is foreign to the actual mechanics of your existence, your living your life, than what would have been. So before one can even get to the point like there was in Emin, an issue where one could start doing a kind of work because you spent a period of time readdressing yourself, not necessarily changing so much as altering a little twitching, you know, this kind of thing. Like you've got the radio, but it's not on the station, that kind of thing, in yourself. And the reason it's not on the station is because the practices you have in your life, which you've got to have if you want to earn some money, you know, you've got to do it whether you like it or not, tend to take that wireless out of frequency, out of tune. But before you can go on to what we used to call interplanetary work, which means issues bigger than a planetary affair or event, you have to have in yourself the right setup, criterias, or processes working that are able to cope with it. Otherwise, it's just a pointless starting. Now, a good example of that. I'm sorry, Pierce.
No. Thank you.
I didn't mean to. I was just curious about one thing. All right. Should I finish? I like your setup. You've got that really set up well. You know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. I mean, I've got 2 blackboards, but I ain't got a room like that. You know. However, sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying.
I've converted my basement here.
Yeah, right. One of the works that was done prior to Emin, during the Emin, after the Emin, as far as I was concerned, I parted company in 1980, 81 time, and even now were such works as what the Emin called the Eminent Way. That was a work that was specifically designed to approach the elemental nature of life, because elementals do exist, but we don't deal with them. They don't come up high roads. You understand? They don't acquaint with people's gardens. You might get the odd little thing here and there, which is a sort of an offshoot from a main elemental sort of breeding pattern. You know, you might get the odd little gnome or pixie or something that does mess about or acquaint with the human event, but they are closer to the planetary event itself than we are. But we are second to them in originality, because elemental life form was here before humans. So if we look for an antiquity in what we do, we have to go back to that. But to do so, because their life evolution is an ascent of events, rising towards something greater than themselves, as an example, the human, however, has started at the top as managing director and gone down to making the tea at the bottom of the scale. Because even though it might be the dominant creature on this planet by force, threat, bombs, whatever you like, it itself as a living entity doesn't have the wherewithal to be where it should be, sitting at the top, also in an ascendant form. So what we're looking for to rise to be to that situation is the return of the natural abilities into oneself, which is the work that Pierce does, returning people back to that condition, and then with those extras, approaching such things as Eminent Way work, where you lift off from the general cultural value of life, seeing it, truth of it, and forget the church. I mean, forget the search for truth, forget the Himalayas, forget it all. Been there, done it all, waste of time. I wish I had the money now, if you see what I mean. Really, seriously. And then to begin something where it's all about you. It's not about kissing some curry-chewing guru's feet, which is a concept I absolutely hate. And so does Pierce. We don't like it, do we? No way.
No.
Because the point is, listen, who are you doing it for anyway? You have feelings. You said there you are. You see about your involvement in things, and your belonging and dwellings and that kind of affair. And you yourself, I'm sure, you seem more like a head man than a heart man. But it's good to be both. You know, but you can't be them all both, you know. They argue, you know. That's something you've got to put right in yourself. Because if you deal in power and influence, you don't want an argument going on between your head and your heart, because it'd be more destructive for you than the neighbours. Do you understand what I'm talking about here? See? So these, yes, but you've got to address your mind to various values which you have lived with, but not quite understood maybe. And most of the time, I think, Pierce will bear me out, you are that far away from them all the time, except you don't see them. People just do not see it. Now, I've seen things all my life. Pierce sees things. But you know, you can be walking down the street and nodding at people that other people don't see, as an example, which makes you a bit of a weirdo. Really. You should be in a loony bin. Nut house. You understand what I mean? I mean, I'm very plain speaking, me. I don't bugger about with words. What's the point? Wasting your life otherwise. So I'm not in a loony bin because I've learned how to avoid other people's looks and ideas and controls and rays of obedience upon me, because I see more about them than they do about themselves. So from their point of view, their ideology, their ego of self, their whatever's in there is what they come up against in the first issue when trying to change themselves to do a work. But you know what the most foolish thing in the world is? When someone says, even though it's very noble, because the world of nobility comes before the world of being eminent. You see, that's another domain you have to go through to get to being eminent. So I think Pierce is right naming this eminent way, because that's its destination more than it is what you've got to get there first. You know, you can't play on the swings unless you go to the park.
Yeah, we're at the preeminent way right now.
Children's swings in parks, you know what I mean? So you can't go to the swing unless you go to the park, you see? So in the same way, you can't be esoteric, you can't be occult, you can't be spiritual even, unless you go there. But it's getting there, that's the point, because there's so much crap in the world, isn't there? About what they say this and say that, and if you meet someone with three eyes, you know, I mean, when you get there, you've got a fourth one. I mean, this is life for you. You know, say thanks very much. It was a great, you know, thanks for the waste of time, but you know, I won't be back. I mean, that kind of thing. But when you go home and you sleep at night, you're with yourself, and it's what you have at the end of every day that determines whether you're going in the right direction with those feelings you have in yourself where you know it's right or you know it's wrong. You do. Very often people are so accurate in that area, but do they ever listen to it? No, they don't, because it's called being divinatory. So one has to learn how to be divinatory, because it requires a great deal of listening to the self. But we all have a fall of self. And if you listen to that, you're in trouble, because it will do nothing but get you into trouble. So we've got to sort ourselves out to be able to cope with a work or a learning or even knowledge that can change the world for us, but not us personally. That's no good. Not in my book, because you're the one that's going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. Pierce is going to die. I don't know what the world's going to do without him, mind you. But, you know, everybody's going to die. A blade of grass dies, and it's a personal issue. The most two personal issues of your existence is your day you were born and the day you die. You're born on an in-breath and you die on an out-breath. You don't die on an in-breath. There are laws that say and condition our whole entire life, which is what Pierce was coming on about the nature of these 46 planetary laws, etc. You know, and we had to come to terms with a lot of new learning. And it's the new learning where you have the first difficulty with, because you will find certain areas of yourself resisting what is being said. Because here's a mathematical point, and I'll hand it back to Pierce because I'm nicking his business here. Hang on. This is the point. You're not the same person now that you are when you go to work. I take it you go to work. Or if you're unemployed, you're at work when you're unemployed. You know, you go to work, you know what I mean? And you're not the same person that woos your girlfriend on a Friday night. You're not the same person that gets angry when something upsets you or whatever. You're not the same person that studies in a book. Now, all of these, so very nicely put by psychology and such sciences, they're features of your character. You know, you have one character, but there's many facets to it and all this sort of thing. Well, I tend to look at it that these are all different people in you. They're all you, but they're all different. Now, which one's the real one? Which one is the real you? Because I guarantee you'll have a problem finding the real you. You know why? Because you work this out mathematically. And I'll show you why we lose so much in our life about our life. Because if I've got 20 people like that in me, which is average, when you consider and look at yourself, and they all demand 10 minutes every day, I'm going to lose 6 or 7 hours of my day to other people in me. Oh, yeah, it's me that goes to work, but it's not the real me. Which means, for a start, I don't get 24 hours a day. I lose 8 sleeping. I lose 7 or 8 hours normally to other people in me, and I get the remainder. So you can't expect to do very well with things if only 40% of your life is doing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You want you back. You don't want to share it with all these other bloody people because it's your body, it's your life. How the hell can you be eminent if you're only 40% of yourself? You might as well send your hips and your legs to do the job because that's about 40% of you, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because if they want to argue about who owns you, you're going to have to divide yourself up into spaces. I'm sure you get what I mean here. But do you know we never take account of it? And then we get people saying, oh, I'm going to change myself. Now, how the hell can someone change themselves if they don't even know what they are? How are they going to do it? It's a madness. It's a total madness. Wouldn't you agree, Piers? An absolute bloody madness. So what Piers is saying is, I'm not speaking for Piers. I'm just saying, right? But getting the notions and the ideas right is very important at the beginning, because if you get the ideas right, if you project that up the road somewhere, you're already changing tomorrow, because tomorrow you've got something else to aim towards rather than what you might say to some people. It depends on the region you're coming. You know, they're normally unhappy with what they've done in their life so far. So tomorrow's going to be another letdown, isn't it? Another day without. And do you know what I think? Even if you make one step a day, you're going in the right direction. You know, that old Emin saying? Actually, it wasn't an old Emin saying, it was Leo's. And I remember the day he invented it too. All to your stride and meet a stranger. Right? That's what it was about, believe it or not. There, you've got some original knowledge there. Mind you, we don't teach Emin here, so it's not Emin. It goes on from where Emin fell apart. See? So it's that kind of thing, you know. Sorry, Piers, I think, you know.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It is what you are saying, right?
It is. And
I gave you time to write your things on your blackboard. You're going to beat us.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'm going to oblige to sit and listen to it, aren't I? Yes, of course I am.
You. No, Orman, you used
worth
the word.
listening to. I mean, I don't mind go anywhere to listen to anybody. It's worth listening to. But I tell you what, I once walked 23 miles, and I did this genuinely because I didn't have the fare to listen to this guy who was supposed to be the man. I've never been so disappointed in what I heard in my life, and I walked back 23 ruddy miles. And the reason I did is, my face must have put people off from offering me a lift. But I did it because I thought it was worth it. You see, the kind of price we pay for things, is it worth it? And then it's worth the price, isn't it? But eventually, that price is altering oneself to be able to fit or cope with the possibility of what it is that one's asking for oneself, because it's got to be about yourself. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, it's in that mode anyway. Wouldn't you say, Mr. Pearce?
Yes, absolutely.
You've not adopted that name, maybe Pearce Eminent Way.
Yeah,
I advise you to take the name. I did a few weeks ago. You know, a month or was it years ago? You know, Nigel Group. It's a good name to have if you're on the way. It really is. Yeah.
What now? I didn't hear you.
Oh, thank God for that. Don't worry, it was all right. It's all right.
Told me to take the name Leo.
No. What, Leo Snigelgroover? That wouldn't work.
Oh, right.
I'm always interested in names and kind of the theory and the, you know, what names make you, and what some people say what's in a name, and then we go off on this not tangent, but it's relevant. I think
names are important, you know. I think.
But I mean, your point was, you said Pierce, pick a name, and then you have some thoughts about his name, but he can't pick a name unless he keeps picking a new name every year. Because I know I'm going to be a different Pierce, a different Sachin every year. So do we have, like, I read a book where they said,
well, it's a good, go on, it's your moment here, my friend.
Yeah, there was a science fiction book where it said the person.
I'll tell you why I did mine first, and then let Pierce tell you, because this is his gathering, you know. I didn't come here to take that. The thing is, what I did.
Okay.
Right?
I
looked for a motivation in the name.
Yes,
Wasn't
but that's never
My
changed.
favourite star at the time was a man called Billy Two Rivers. Now, Billy Two Rivers was a wrestler, right? He was a nasty piece of work, but he was a genuine wrestler too, funny enough. However, so I couldn't call myself Billy Two Rivers. It's a bit, oh, hello, there's this beautiful man come to do some healing on you. His name's Billy Two Rivers. What? I mean, you know, they probably wouldn't let me in the door, you know. So, I mean, well, what's worth it? What is it? Now, we live in a galaxy that has a name, and we live on a planet that has a name. We live in a solar system that has a name too. And I thought to myself, well, I really do love this planet. I do. It's a beautiful place. I can't understand people saying, oh, I want to get off of this bloody miserable planet. It's anyhow. I mean, what? And do you know how rare a planet like this is? You know, and oh, I mean, give us a break, you know, come on. And what's the name of this galaxy? It's called the galaxy of what? Ors, right? Ors, O-R-S. And this is the planet of Ors. This is a very high-based planet in this galaxy system. Most blue ones are. It's also known as the Blue Empress. Okay. There's a white empress, a blue empress, there's others. And this is the planet of Ors. A kind of way to look at it is, say there's an emperor of the galaxy. He's got to live somewhere in the galaxy. I mean, he doesn't live in another one and come every day to this one. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, so he'll live on a planet somewhere like what you see in the films with his rings around it. And it's obviously the emperor's planet. So the emperor's planet's going to be called the same as the galaxy. So this kind of planet, when it's got a blueprint system, is called the planet of Ors. Its name is Ors. Its personal name is Eve, but it's Eve Ors, if you see what I mean. So it's planet of Ors. So I call myself Orman, man of Ors, which tells me everything, because even if I do manage to become a creational, I still call myself Orman, because that's where I came from.
See, I think, Orman, that was very well explained. Thank you. That's like Pierce, you pick a name, like my name is.
I have another name, that's Virsel, V-I-R-S-E-L, which is an anagram of silver. Because no one else I've ever known spotted that one. So you spot your name.
I
right?
spotted.
Yeah, that's how you do it, you see. Because then that stays with you, even though you might change your name because of what you're doing at the time. It's a temporary affair, but eventually, and I think Pierce would bear me out here, eventually, nature gives you a name that you're known by, because you get known in the unseen worlds, you get known by the elemental worlds, and all these are the worlds you're heading towards. If you follow Pierce, I'm telling you, you'll go in that direction. These are the worlds that they go looking for all over the world when they do the esoteric journey, you know. But it's known as being on the way. But that's fine, because then you've got to supposed to go off looking with a lantern and all that sort of stuff, right? But the thing about Pierce is, of course, if you deal with Pierce, it's work that's done within the way. There's a difference between being on the way and being in the way. You can take my word for it, right? I've done your commercial there now. I'm expecting you to tell my girlfriend some things for me, all right? You've got to do my commercials.
Orman, how would you
to have an arrangement like that, isn't it? You do each other's commercials. What's that? Sorry?
Well, my question was, the way I express where I am is I maybe think there is a way that I want to be on. How would you name that? That's where I am. Maybe there is.
I name what? I don't follow you. How would I name what?
No, I'm not looking for a name. I'm just saying, what are some ways of thinking about, I'm in the beginning of what I see is a way. So Pierce is in the way or on the way. I'm like,
what the trouble with thinking is, don't you? By the time you thought it, everybody's moved off into the distance and left you behind. I wouldn't bother trying to do it if I was you. There's other things you need.
myself that way. I'm just saying, how would you, because I mean, hopefully soon within this year, I will be in the way or in the beginnings of the way and walking on the way.
You've got the right kind of man there to show you how to do it, believe me.
So I'm here.
That's it. But, you know, you're going to have struggles with yourself. Trust me, you are not going to get away with it without some kind of argument, resistance, problem of self in it. You just got to hold on to the values of things. Don't throw yourself away. I'll leave you with this one last thing. I'm not going to shut up for the sake of poor Mr. Pierce there. I mean, he's get back to you. Yeah, I'm going to get back to you in a minute. Sorry about this. Didn't mean to do this. You've got to think.
It's quite all right.
When does your belief become real? When do you stop having to believe because you became what you believe in?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? Now you've got to believe in yourself, but when does that belief stop and you are yourself? Because it stops when you become yourself, doesn't it? So you learn how to use things to get somewhere. But, you know, when you go out there and you ask them all, you know, do you believe in Jesus? Yeah, of course you do. That's because they're not Jesus. And you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, belief is no longer required once you are it.
Well, you don't need it, do you? Come on, seriously. The whole point is to get to be it, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of Jesuses. I meet them every day. I do. Be surprised how many people think they are Jesus. You know, you must have, you know, a very active mother. That's all I can say on that one. It's very English, you know. Where are you? Where are you based?
I'm based in, if that was addressed to me, I'm based in Seattle, Washington.
You're in Seattle, and where's Mike?
Not far away from Cologne.
In
Germany.
France? Oh,
Germany.
Sorry. Naughty boy. Sorry about that. Germany. Oh, Germany.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Pierce is in America.
Yeah.
Orman, where are you? Are you in the UK? I hear.
I'm in a place called Colchester in England.
That's
Colchester is the oldest city in England. It's older than London. And this was the very first city that the Romans set up, you know, 20-odd thousand, God knows how many years ago. Right. And Colchester people still act like it too. But it's a nice place. You get a great shopping and it's good fun here. And I live smack bang right in the centre of town. See, right at the top of this office block. Right, I've got my own little penthouse up here. So, you know, unlike Pierce, of course, I mean, you know.
So I think one more question. I think you mentioned when you become what you believe in, that's the goal. But what if, like, for most of the people, because we're so disconnected from our intent and our design, we don't even know what to believe in. Like, I don't necessarily know what to believe in.
There you go. You see, now that's a very wise thing to say. That's where you start, isn't it? It's where you start.
So that's why I said I'm at the start. I'm like, what is worth believing?
Don't try and change anything in yourself, because you'll only go wrong if you do. Really, seriously, this is one time when what you need is winning edges. What you need is the right learning. What you need is the right direction. You've got to do it yourself. But getting that right.
I need to jump in on this one, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm talking about my own philosophy here, and I'm going to stay. I'm going to shut up though. All right, go on.
Well, I mean,
I switch my sound off. So if I'm moving like this, it's just because I can't stop talking.
I think Pierce invited you, so you wouldn't stop talking, and that was the intent. Like, please, I mean, anyway, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, no, let me respond to that a little bit on a slightly different tangent. You said, I don't know what to believe in, and that makes a couple of presuppositions. The first presupposition is the very first word, I, right? What is that? That's kind of where you have to start, isn't it, right? The second one is that why should you believe in something? In my estimation, I feel like belief is a poor excuse for actually being able to know and do, right? And one of the basic tenets, one of the basic propositions in the Eminent Way is don't believe anything, try it. If it works for you, take it away and, run with it. If it doesn't, let it go, right? And that's actually the only safe way to proceed. Now, this ties into, going back to the I portion, this ties into something that Orman said somewhat in passing, but I think it deserves to be elaborated on, and that is the divinatory nature of oneself. And Sachin, I know you are fascinated with language right now. What does the prefix div mean? DIV.
No idea. Fascinated, but know very little.
It means to split. It means to split, right? And so one can't actually have a divinatory nature about oneself, which, first of all, this is such a loaded or very close to a very loaded term in the English language, which is divination, right? People think of, go to a tarot reader or an astrologer or whatever, and they're going to give you this, divination of the future. That's not what divination means. Divination is actually a form of reflection. It's not a form of future casting. It can be used as a form of future casting at some point in time, but the very first requirement of having a divinatory aspect of oneself is that division of what is real and what is learned or added to. And quite frankly, what is real in people these days is basically stops when they're about 6, 7 years old, right? And everything else, maybe even earlier, 5 or 6 years old, everything else is just coat after coat after coat, right? Of, things you learn in school, things that you learn from your peers, things that you learn from your parents, and that type of stuff. And so the very first step in that is to cause a division in oneself. And to be divinatory about oneself is really the only thing that's required in this. But that doesn't require any form of belief. It really just requires, look, we were talking earlier about, the pentagrammic structure, right? And these different functions. For most people, that's kind of a theoretical aspect, right? The fact that you have a part of you that does the thinking, or at least that type of thinking, that we refer to as that. You have a part of you that does moving. You have a part of you that takes care of the autonomic nervous system, digestion, respiration, all that type of stuff. You have a part of you that both generates and responds to emotion. And you have a part of you that is responsive to creativeness as well as procreation. Now, that's all well and good to say, but really what you should be saying to me back is, okay, prove it. And the only way to really prove it is to experiment with oneself. If you were in this room and I threw you a ball, you would probably be able to just reach up and catch it. Yeah, most people can, right? Because a part of you has been trained to do that. Now, if it's just your mind doing it, if you had to think like, oh, there's a ball coming at me, I should activate, this muscle, this, I mean, it would hit you in the face, right? If you had to actually think through the process. So clearly there's something else inside of you that's taking care of that. And that something else has been trained to catch a ball, right? If you throw a ball at someone who's never caught a ball before, it probably will hit them in the face. Yeah. No matter how brilliant they are, because the body's not been trained to do it. I have been involved in martial arts for more than 40 years, and that is a form of training. So for me, if you begin to look at something, like it can be anything, learning to drive a car, or some sort of art like martial arts. In the beginning, where does it start? It starts with thinking, doesn't it? Your instructor or whatever says, this is the gas pedal, this is the clutch, this is the brake, steering wheel, you know. And when you first begin to drive a car, right, especially if it has it's not an automatic, it's complete chaos, isn't it? Right, because you're having to think about every little thing. But then fast forward to a time 6 months, a year, 20 years, 30 years later, and you can be steering with one hand, changing the radio with the other one, carrying on a conversation, even steering with your knee and doing multiple things in there without it being a concern whatsoever. What is it in you that does that? And so this is where I'm starting with this, Sachin, is that in order to even begin to approach having the divinatory nature about oneself, you have to begin to actually observe yourself, almost like you're a scientist studying a creature that you just discovered, right? You don't know anything about it. And this creature, what is it like? What does it do? How does it behave? And honestly, there comes a point in time when you start to do this, that you suffer a form of embarrassment. It's not actual embarrassment like we would feel in a cultural context, but it's an embarrassment of going, wow, I really do that. Yeah, I'm really like that. That sort of thing. And that's a very good sign that you're actually beginning to cause that separation of what is truly essentially you and what is everything else kind of painted on. And everything that is you in the beginning is only that which you were born with. That's it. That's it. It's not anything that you've learned from your parents or from school or from whatever kinds of interactions. And really, that is unfortunately how most people die in their life. They die with no more than what they were born with. Because there's a law in the universe that everything returns to the source of its arising. Right. And so if I learn, something from teachers, if I learn something from my parents, if I learn something from this and that and the other thing, where does all that go when I die? It's not me. It's not part of what I showed up here with, is it? And so it's going to dissipate. It's going to go away. Now, there does exist the possibility that once you cause that divinatory nature of self, that division, beginning with division and extending to the divinatory, that you actually can begin to acquire things. And this is where belief begins to be kicked out of the window, because once something becomes permanent inside you, once something actually lodges inside you and becomes part of that essential nature of yourself, belief is such a cheap word. It's like saying, I believe I have a right hand, right? Now, this is interesting, isn't it? Because I could have a room full of 1,000 people and, presuming they actually have one, how many people believe they have a right hand? Yes, of course. It's going to, all the hands are going to go up, right? I have a right hand, I have a right hand. Now, how many people believe they have a soul? How many hands do you think would go up? Or if I said, how many people believe that they have a spirit? Now, how many hands are going to go up? Certainly a number of them will. But then when you ask a person, okay, start here. First of all, what's your right hand? Well, it's attached to this part of my body. It's got 5 fingers, right? Someone can easily explain what their right hand is. But then you ask the same room full of people that, at least 50% of them say, oh yeah, of course I have a soul. You ask half of them what that is, and you're going to get, 500 different answers. And most of them won't even know what the difference between the soul and the spirit is. And so this is where it's a matter of belief, but it's not backed by anything. Now, the difference here is that
what about when you ask them, why do you exist?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's even worse.
Nobody give you an answer.
Right? Yeah, for sure. No, it's true.
I stood outside a tube station in London with a board one morning. You've got to do things like this, because if you don't do it yourself, I did, yeah. And I had 2 questions and stopped them when they come out in the morning going to work in the city, like hundreds of them pouring out, right, with bowler hats, and this is down in the city. Right? Excuse me, could you give me a minute? Just 2 quick questions, if you don't mind, okay? can you tell me what time of the day it is? Most of them got it right, and it'll clock you. And at 9:10, right? Fine. Thank you, sir. Second question is, why do you exist?
Yeah.
And I tell you, if you want to watch a show, that is the best place to go and do it, brother, because you'll be lucky if you get an answer.
And yet, for a brief second, you're actually going to see their essence pop out, because this is what happens, right?
Yeah, that's right.
If you catch someone in a state like that, it makes them feel very naked, very exposed, because they don't have a program. Nothing has been put into them to be able to answer that question automatically. You walk into the grocery store, hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Whatever. That's an automatic response, automatic answer. You ask someone a question like that, why do you exist? And what happens is the personality of them scatters to the wind. And for that brief moment, you actually can look in their eyes and see not who they are, but what they are. And then eventually something will kind of, come in and say, yeah, this is the program that, I have for this. And they'll either give you an answer or punch you or walk away or, whatever the case may be. But yeah. So this is the difference. Do you understand? You started off, Sachin, by saying, I don't know what to believe. Don't, would be my advice. Don't. Just experience and see. Right?
What do you think then you are going to get? Because I quickly realized I was wasting my bloody time. I mean, those bowler hats, posh looking suits, they must have cost them $2,000 down Savile Road, and their best jobs, and they live in the country with their 3-bedroom semi-detached house, and lovely looking wife. They're always lovely looking wives, other women are, aren't they? And they're beautiful little children and his bankroll and the rest of it, and they don't even know why they're doing it. Yeah. I'm looking in the wrong direction. But you've got to live through the experience of some things, haven't you? You've got to go out and do it yourself, haven't you, really?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, and and then slowly your so-called beliefs about things get stripped away. They fall away they fall besides the way, as they say. You know what I mean? Right?
Well, and this is kind of how we're sort of coming full circle in this standpoint, because I began by saying, I had so much of this type of work, it was loading in the wrong place. It was loading into the wrong part of me. It was becoming this charismatic personality instead of actually affecting who I was. And here's the thing, if you look at some of the early archives, Journey Volume 1, that type of stuff, they're actually full of mistakes. And yet I didn't know that at the time because I never did the work of it, right? The ray of creation is completely wrong. Many of the things on the laws are completely wrong. Now, I can say this, and I can back it up by actually going through it and showing, but see, I never would have known that had I not actually backed everything up, dumped all of it, and began fresh and actually did the work from the very beginning. Sachin, did you disappear? Are you still around?
No, I'm still here. I've got
Okay.
time on the
Fine.
house.
Yeah.
You
Just
keep
making
going
sure
off on mine. Mine keeps going off and on as well.
Right.
But I think I'm still on.
Yeah,
But
if I'm-
sometimes I can't see you. Streaming problem, isn't it? It's called streaming.
Yes. So I need to
I'm an old man, you see. I don't know after modern terms.
in my case, I'm actually turning it on and off to not have people distracted. But if it's turning
Your
it off,
housekeeper? Did you say your housekeeper's doing it?
no, I have a cousin visiting from India. He's kind of walking around. He's just woke up. He's getting breakfast. I don't want to get distracted.
It's worse, isn't it?
He's a good guy. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think so. I have
Go ahead.
the conversation started here again. Steps, right? We humans, at least I, we have a problem with something we can, two problems. One is we have a problem with believing and kind of following something we cannot see. That's one. And the second problem is we have a really big problem with doing and believing something that takes a long time to happen. Like by a long time, sometimes it's very hard for anybody to keep doing something uh, for weeks or years without seeing a
Tell me about it.
physical return. Or
This word cologne is the perfect example. Yeah.
it's
Sure.
kind of interesting. The reason I bring this up is, well, I've been practicing yoga. I've been doing mindfulness, blah, blah, for a while, and there's no physical return. I mean, I know it's super powerful because I feel really good after I do it, but there's no real good, there's like, why keep doing it? Like, what's the point? And so to your point, and I think you said, you said, don't believe, just do, try it. Like, how long does one try it? And how does at some point, how do you decide that whatever you're trying is actually worth doing? And do you continue or do you stop? And then how do you decide that? I mean, I have my thoughts, but I'm just throwing this out as a conversation.
Yeah, well, that's the risk, isn't it? I mean, we're given a certain number of years where the permission is extended to breathe, to live, to do, to be, right? But that's a finite amount of time to do it. And here's the biggest risk, is that you can spend the majority, or a person can spend the majority of their lives pursuing something that in the end leads nowhere. You know? Yeah. And it's too late at a certain point in time. It's almost too late to start over, isn't it? You know, because things take time, except I'm going to share a different view with you, okay? Because everyone thinks that this kind of spiritual development journey, or whatever, you know, whatever the proper term is for it these days, is like climbing a ladder, right? Like suddenly I'm just a little bit more spiritual today than I was yesterday, and a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more spiritual, but that's actually not how it works. It's on, I'm going to erase this because it's the day has passed for that. It's actually on a completely different octave. We talked last time about the two aspects of the law of two, one being confirmation, the other being aggregation, right? Those are the only two, really. But here's the thing. This is the line of your life, okay? This is where, you know, emotionally, you know, some days you have higher times, or, you know, physically you're down here, this type of thing. This is kind of the bar of your existence, the parameters of, you know, your highs and lows. A spiritual development journey or a personal development journey doesn't sit on this bar whatsoever. And the reason why is because it doesn't come from the culture of life. It comes from somewhere else. It comes from something else, actually. And it sits here on this vector, not on the up-down vector of one's kind of normal cultural life. And so, realistically speaking, there's nothing you can do here in order to spiritually advance or spiritually grow. There's absolutely nothing. It's never even a matter of time. You know, if you want to think of this as birth and this is death, or vice versa, that's your finite time, but it doesn't happen in that. It happens at a different level. It happens at a different octave. And literally, the better version of yourself is not up here. The worst version or less developed version of yourself is not down here. It's over here, right? And at any point in time, you can adjust your perception to sidestep into a different reality. And I actually mean that literally. We have roles. We have roles, right? There is I'm going to draw this way. There's a role of life, and this is, you know, this is birth, this is death, and this is the entire lifespan of Sachin's life, right there. Now, I don't know. You seem like an engineering type. I'm just going to sort of guess, okay? But this is Sachin the engineer, and you know, this is absolutely just a role. If Sachin disappeared, someone else would just kind of pop in, right? Because the planet needs certain roles, yeah, to just be fulfilled. I'm not saying that engineering is necessarily a role, but you know, at any given point in time, there are the same number of lottery winners as there always have been. There are the same number of you know, pop musicians, rock stars, whatever. These are all like roles of life that you can just sort of drop into. And if someone drops out of it, a new thing drops into it. But the situation exists where at some point in time, you might encounter something that pushes you outside of that role completely. For some people, it can be, a traumatic event, or, pardon me one second. I'm actually going to let someone in for a moment. He's awfully late, but
Better late than never.
yeah, better late than never. But the idea that I'm getting to here is that this difference, right? This role of life, this is where you can be, this is where you can exist, but that's not where you should be. And so then it begs the question, who's going to fill that role if you leave it? Yeah. Now here's the other thing too, is that there are some people that have a role of life as a quote unquote guru, right? That's still a role of life. That doesn't actually imply any sort of necessarily any sort of development on their behalf.
You paused it.
Ask.
Was that a question?
Yeah, you have a question. I see it in your eyes. Ask.
No, I don't have a question. I'm listening very clearly. I mean, I have, both you and Orman have touched on a lot of topics that are very relevant to where I am and what I'm thinking and what conversations that me and my girlfriend have. But there's way too many to cover in half an hour, or an hour or two, maybe not even 3. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to keep popping up these questions, and I'm just eagerly listening and soaking it in, and then go on a walk, talk, go on a walk, talk, go on a walk, talk, think, shower, talk. I'm just going to deep dive and come up with more questions. And eventually I'll have less questions. Maybe. Can't guarantee that.
Well, that's called death, isn't it? When you have less questions. Because it's not like, you take a journey and you suddenly just get to the point where you've answered half the questions, or you've answered 3/4 of the questions that life can give you. Every time you answer one, it kind of moves the bar, right? And then you begin asking better questions. And that's really the sign of development, is not how, quote unquote, spiritual a person seems. You can really tell a person's level of development by the kind of questions they ask.
Oh, good. I've got a good question.
Yeah. Good question.
You missed your opportunity, boys. Yeah. When you were drawing on the board there, right, just now, you wiped it off. I thought that was absolutely excellent. I mean, what you see, if your life is a role, okay, and you're totally enclosed within it, I suppose you've every right to call yourself totally cultural, because that role's got to be of a culture, right? Can you hear me out in the distance down there?
Yes.
All right, okay. Can I ask you just a sort of like brackets question? This is in the brackets of the question. So, who's moving your camera around? Because
it's a robotic camera. In fact, if I do this, if it sees me, then it will track me.
Right.
There it goes. Now it's going to try and track me.
So typical. I mean, we don't get anything until America's had it for 5 years and doesn't want it anymore. Then it comes to England.
I'll send you one.
It's so like it, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So as you were saying there, so if, like you say, an event occurs, like you get up one morning and you're going down the shop to get your newspaper. They do in England, right? Sorry if it's not American. You go and get your fags and your cigarettes and your newspaper, and some guy comes around the corner showing off in front of his girlfriend and knocks you off the pavement, right? And just for that moment onwards, your life is not going to be in that role. So you get kicked out of your role, so to speak, right? So that's what you were saying there, that you're now not in your role. So what are you then? Because as a good example, you get other kinds of life experience, planetary experience is a better word to say, because you find yourself, there you are, mangled up in front of this car, broken legs and arms and unconscious and all that sort of thing. And there you are, hovering over it, looking at yourself, or you're standing next to it, looking at the carnage on a body which you occupied a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So there is other life in us besides the general cultural role of life. As an example, our astral body, right?
Yeah.
So for a few moments, we're outside of ourselves. Then suddenly, bingo, you wake up, you're in hospital. You've been unconscious for a few days. You know, you got your legs and your arms spread eagled, and some silly woman, you know, looking at you, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah? And you're back in yourself. Well, what was that all about? I mean, why isn't that normal? Why have you got to be sort of like bloody well near life smashed on the floor and killed to find that sort of thing happens? But when you look in YouTube, you know, you get all these so-called gurus, you know, learn how to astral travel in 10 minutes, you know. This is the kind of age we live in, isn't it? Once upon a time, you'd have to go to the Far East and join a temple to get anything on astral traveling. Now it's astral traveling on demand, you know, and so on and so forth.
Streaming.
A sign of the age we live in, isn't it? Yeah. But if that had been a fatal crash and you were still standing there looking at yourself, then surely isn't that some kind of proof that there is something that lives on after the death of the physical body? I mean, I've always said, look, because your car goes to the scrapyard doesn't mean to say its passengers do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so from that particular point of view, it's possible then, isn't it? Because then all of these works on reincarnation become a possibility if you know that such a thing that lives in you can live on after the death of your ordinary self, because your culture dies at that time, right? And that's you're left. That bit of you is left. But that, from what we were talking about earlier on, might not be you. It might be the guy that goes to work. You kind of get my picture here. So, you know, I think taking ownership of self is a bit more than just one's ordinary life. And that, I actually think, was a very good way to describe it, what you were saying there, if you don't mind me saying. Sorry, it was meant to be a compliment, not a lesson.
No.
You know?
Well, you know, and it brings up the
My view. I mean, that's what Sachi said, wasn't it? Is it Sachi? Sachin. Yeah. Sachin said that, didn't he? He's going to pop in with bits and pieces, right? It's Mike's turn now, isn't it? Go on, Mike, it's your go.
I'm just saying my name is Sachin, just so that you don't feel embarrassed that you pronounce
Okay.
my
Sachin. I think that's a nice name. Joshy Sachin. That's unusual.
No, I'm from India. This is not unusual. You heard of Sachin Tendulkar. You're a cricket guy, don't
It's
you?
better than Leo Snigelgruber, isn't it? I mean, you know.
No, Orman.
Girls would go for that name better than Leo Snigelgruber.
Orman. Sachin
Yeah,
Tendulkar,
sorry.
the batsman, the cricket player.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. Sachin, same name. Tendulkar,
Oh, see. Oh, right.
same guy, same name.
Of course. Oh, yeah, see.
Very common name, not unusual at
A
all.
role model, have you? Is your role model?
there's an irony in this, is
What?
that if this is true, that we are basically filling the role of life, then when you ask someone what they are and why they're here, and they say, well, I'm a doctor, I'm a father, I'm a, you know, whatever they come back with is actually true if they haven't had this type of either intentional bump out of the role of life or accidental, right? They really are that, because without that kind of conscious awareness of being outside of that role of life, that really is what you are at that point. Now,
Yeah, I agree.
the real question.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Totally. I mean, you're right. But at the same time, it's a temporary affair, isn't it? It's
It is,
planetary only, you know? And also, there's also the fact that I tended to ask people, you know, what their existence was about rather than their life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's the question, isn't it?
Well,
Because at this level, it's the who and the what are the same. The who and the what are merged. It's only at when someone has actually had that kind of separation, that the who is down here and the what is up here, and that becomes that sort of duality.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
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 But here, at this level, who and what are the same entity. And this is why people have so much trouble answering that question, because in the soul and spirit of a person, they want to be able to answer something more. They want to, there is a drive inside where a person needs to be able to answer something more than I'm an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a father, a mother, whatever the case is.
Well, you hope so. You would.
We would hope so. Yeah. Well, true. But this is why it's so stunning and shocking to ask someone that, because
Well, what about the idea?
they know.
What about the idea, Piers? What about the idea that people, were born to die?
Hmm.
It's an awful thing to say, isn't it? That one was born to die. I mean, you think about the First World War, right? Yeah. In England, they put up this poster with this guy pointing his finger. Your country needs you, right? That's all it said. And so they signed up 120,000 of the cream of England, young men between 18 and 21 years only, and sent them all out to France to die. That's what they were born for. And they died in France. What kind of a world event is that? I mean, what kind of a human thing is that? Because surely...
It's not. It's a planetary thing.
Is it? Yeah, you're right. But I mean, so what is it then? It's a cultural event then. I mean, what is it? Because we're subject to that. It's part of what we are expected to live through or live because of. Either way, essentially, when it comes down to it in the end, it's still nevertheless you that catches the bullet, isn't it?
Well, the evidence that it's not a human event and that it's a planetary event is that just before any war, basically, there's a surge in population that is equivalent to the amount of people that die in that war. And if you look at before and after, it's the same.
You read Time Life magazine, don't you?
Yeah, but it's true, right? This is not a human event. This is a planetary. And I have long held that what inhabits the human, what inhabits this pentagrammic form, this human form, was never supposed to. We were not supposed to actually be in a hominid, simian, monkey-like body. What the human form actually houses is way outside of planetary level whatsoever, but it's been put here to accommodate for something else. We weren't meant to exist like this, but we do.
Somebody's taking us over.
Kind of. I mean,
we're going to find a big fried saucer come down and crop us. We're all going to get taken off,
All right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, I'll tell you. I really wouldn't. I've been telling people that for years, but nobody believes me. Now it's turned up in the world in the form of conspiracy, right?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, I'm not into it, but...
By the way, I need to acknowledge, hello, Carl.
Oh, right.
It's probably a bit difficult to catch the track of it. I just saw that you were joining, but I don't know how long you were in the waiting room. So for that, my apologies. Hello. So we're getting close to, actually, we're over the time that I had allotted. We can keep going if people wish to stay, or we can wrap it up. Yeah, you want to keep going? Okay. Here's what I'll do.
Mike's sitting on, what is it now, Mike? Midnight or close to at this point for you, time zone wise?
No, my time is 6:30 p.m.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
Well, so just as a point,
you're 1 hour in front of me then.
Yeah.
Oh, dear, oh dear.
Thanks for
I'm
joining.
not interfering with your session too much here.
No.
Listen, I will tell you though, I have to go at 6 o'clock because I've got another session to go to.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
No, I'm serious.
I
just saw this about 3 or 4 minutes before you actually started, believe it or not. No,
I just had an intuition about it.
I know. I just saw it. I saw it. Oh, look at this. You know, and then it sort of like said goodbye to Iona, and she'd been here sort of doing up the administration stuff and all that, and I saw it. I thought, oh, look at this. Oh, right, okay then. I'm into that for a while. That's fine, you know.
Right. Great.
But I'm trying to support you here, all right? It's getting good. It's getting good. It's got some meat in it, you know.
Yeah.
Really, seriously. No one can hear us. Why isn't? Oh, he's there, isn't he? Yeah.
I think.
Good start with these. They're pretty good, you know.
Yeah, this was kind of a last minute thing. I just wanted to pull together. So yeah.
Well, I think you can do it again.
Huh?
I mean, they'll turn up again, but I'd kill Emin in it. No, really. No, spoils it. You're doing better without it, really.
Way work.
Whatever.
I've about consumed an entire pot of coffee, so.
Well, I just put my kettle on. You know, I've got some. I'm cutting down on things at this end because I've got real serious problems now medically with the thing, you know, with the cancer and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm winding it down.
Welcome back.
I'll get you coffee.
By the way, can you guys hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up if it's coming through. Good. Just got this new kind of wireless mic thing since I meander around. What do you think, Mike? I know this was kind of a sudden impromptu sort of thing.
Well, it's a mixed bag of everything, yeah. So just what comes up is coming up. I mean, it's good. It's just good to be around, and yeah, it's great to. He's not here now, but it's great to listen to Orman. Yeah, I've never met him. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard things about him, yeah, but it's different to actually. I mean, even if it's now digitally, yeah, but or virtually, but anything, it's good.
Yeah, what a world we live in, right?
Yeah.
40 years ago, that would have been impossible. Well,
impossible. Yeah. Yeah, even that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sure. How are you, Carl? I didn't get much of a chance other than just to acknowledge.
I am fine. I'd like to know how to get into the room. I went on and started waiting at 8:58, and it took about 20 minutes before the door opened.
Interesting.
And
well,
how do I get around that? Do I need to get hit there even earlier?
Yeah. So two things. There could be a timing issue because we've been going on for about an hour and 40 minutes now. So it could be a timing issue.
Oh, wow. What times? Because I thought the meeting started at 9 and we're on the same time zone.
Are you in Mountain Time?
Pacific time.
So there's the first disconnect there is that I'm Mountain Time.
Oh, where are you? I thought you were in Sedona.
I'm in Colorado. So we've got Colorado, Seattle, the UK, and Germany all coming together today. Right. So yeah, and then I think the other thing is that Zoom changed some of their policies so that I either require people to have a password or I have to admit them one by one. And I'm trying to figure out what the best option is because when I advertise the public open house ones on Meetup, I don't want to just publish the password out there. And so it's a better scenario to admit people as they come in. But the downside of that, Carl, is that the fact that you're here is about this big on my screen, right? About that big. And so I don't get to see it very easily unless I get really up close, and I'm usually milling around. So that's kind of what happened there.
So how big am I then? That big?
Well, y'all are on a TV, so you're about this big, right?
Oh, am I? Why
Yeah.
is he smaller than me then? I mean, he's the same size physically. Why is it zoomed? Why is there some scale of who comes first?
Why am I smaller?
No, I mean, so why is he in a different size to me then?
I don't know.
You don't know.
But what you different size the video? Do you mean? Is that
I'm better looking.
Orman? What's your question? What is the different size? You mean the resolution?
No, it's screen. The screen.
No, it's
Yes,
just
it's saying that
a lens. It's a wide angle lens for the camera. It's meant for that purpose.
Yeah, I can do this. Then it zooms in, I think.
Yeah, yeah. If
Anyway.
you do that or that, whatever the gesture is, either that or whatever that is to zoom in, zoom out. There's a gesture.
wow.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm the gesturing type, which is why I'm holding my arms here mostly, because I'll make a gesture that the camera interprets as some sort of command. So, well, listen, it feels a bit like we're actually winding down at the moment. Is there anything that someone wants to jump in with as just kind of like a wind down?
So I'd like, since this is a wind down type of thing,
Yeah.
there was one topic that we touched on about death
About death.
that felt a little.
The ultimate wind down, isn't it?
Well, you could look at it. We talked about the World War and all that, and then we said, what is death, and is it the point is where we born to die, and so one part of it is depressing. Is like, hey, you die and everything ends. The other part of it is like you die, and that is a gateway into a higher order of experience or higher order of existence. I have no idea what it is, and so I'm just throwing it as a question, just as talking. What is death? What does death mean, and what are different ways? And is that if you go look at some of my profile, my tagline is, when I was born, everybody was laughing and I was crying, and I want to live my life such that when I die, I'm laughing and everybody around me is crying.
Mm.
That's sort of how I see it. So is death the end, and is that gateway to a different existence, higher or lower? I don't know where it sits. Or do we just say, hey, this is a very biological entity. This entity that I'm in has a biological end, and that is death. And maybe that's all there is. And maybe all this stuff you're talking about is hocus pocus, and there's no such thing as soul or higher order of intelligence. And we are biological entities, purely 1 in a quadrillion chance of life happening. It happened here, and we live through it, and we die. And that's like a very, very materialistic or very biological way of looking at it. So I just wanted to throw that out as discussion points and hear both Orman and Pierce, Rasp, to talk about it.
Well, so my first response to that is that it's going to be difficult to stay in the realms of reality when actually trying to answer that, because anything Orman or I will say about death can only really be taken as belief. And we talked about belief before, right? You can either believe it or not believe it.
Sorry.
So therein lies the conundrum, right? A little bit. Now, going back to my analogy of asking people, please describe your soul or spirit or whatever, in that, most people can't. Most people, will come up with some sort of imaginary type of thing to describe what their soul or spirit is. And it's the same thing with death, unless you actually have a recollection or an experience of it that you can carry with you into another life, then for everyone else, it's going to be a fantasy. This does tie into things like astral travel and, astral bodies and all this sort of thing. I'm not sure how to actually make an approach at answering your question, though. Sachin.
I don't think I had a question. I just wanted to
Okay.
encourage discussions as a closing topic to talk about. Okay, go
Let's
ahead.
do this. Let's make our next time around the topic of reincarnation and immortality.
Yeah, KK has something to add. Go ahead,
Yeah.
KK.
Yeah, I done a lot of research on the subject, and if you Google NDE, especially nderf.org, there are hundreds of thousands of people that cross over and come back now because of medical science, and who bring back some sort of story. So you can do your own research on that. I agree with Pierce that unless it's your experience, we're telling stories, and stories are good. And I'm reading enough of them. People who do that are transformed. They can't. Most of them can't live life the way they were doing it before.
Yeah.
And they come back and they can't live the way they were doing it. It's just a transformative experience. But if you read enough of them, it's like you get a contact high, is what I'll say. And it's actually used as a therapeutic process now, studying this, because it shifts your position when you get into it and read enough of them. And that's up to you. I got hooked into it by accident. I found it fascinating, and I just kept going with it. And that has changed my perspective radically about things. But if it's not your experience, I completely agree with Jeff, where it's in a way, it's more practical to just stay with what we're dealing with, what our day-to-day life is and our struggles, because the other stuff is mythology. It happens, for those people it's real, but for me, say it isn't, or it's only half real.
Yeah, and yet it is something that every single person in this will encounter at some point in time. Mike, yes.
If you want to, I can share an experience if that helps.
Please. Yeah, please do.
Okay, if you want to hear it.
Yes.
Okay, so as a young boy, maybe of age 3 or 4 years old, 4 years maybe, 4 or 5. The first time I went to my grandpa without my parents. And I had a great grandpa, and he used to come with me, and when I go to bed, and he told me stories, and was just great. So, but it was the first time I was not with my parents. I was basically in a different place. So something is different. And when my grandpa went out of the room, and I was in a total fear. And I asked him, I said to my grandpa, I said, Opa, yeah, grandpa, what happens if this building is burning, or it's burning, yeah? So he looked back to me and he said, just don't worry, it's not gonna happen. But I was really like, oh no, Opa, yeah, it's German, yeah, Opa, yeah, grandpa. What shall we do when this house is burning? And he understood, well, this little boy, yeah, is somehow a bit serious, and he came to my bed, and yeah, took my arm, and he said, if that is going to happen, I will get you out of here. Okay, so, and then I could sleep. I was happy I could sleep. So there was something with fire, even when I was very young. Much later, when maybe 10 years ago or something, I was in a very intense inner cooking process, very intense. and I was laying down, and I was actually with someone who was guiding me also through this. So I had someone who was near with me. So I was not just alone. So what happened was that I came into that very fearful thing I knew from childhood. So it was really, I knew this. There is something in me which is always happening. Like, yeah, there's when certain moments happen, something with fire, it can be anything. It can be a trigger. So, but I was in a very, very intense process. I can't describe everything, not everything. It would be too long. But I was in that intense process where something very, I would say, something happened. And I found myself, when now's the question, who is myself? I don't answer the question. I found what I experienced in a house which is wooden, and that house was somewhere in the middle of the night or something, and that house was burning. And that particular person was looking for everything. Where can I get out? And it was not possible. And that particular person, or whatever you call that, was then in a state where basically you could almost see the arms in going into flames, and there was that fear. And so that was like a re-experience, or like an experience of that. And there was then the experience of basically leaving that body, and well, from then on is a different story. But that told me something, and I don't say this is a past life experience. It can be anything, but I don't say it is, yeah. But when basically coming back into like this body, this kind of body, and was then going out of that particular process, because I just said there was someone who was with me, and that particular person, very experienced person, said, "Wow, that was a profound experience." And during the whole evening, I had to cough. You understand? I mean, when there's fire, you can. It's very difficult to breathe, and you have that smell, and you have that. And I had it the whole evening on that day. I was coughing. So where does that come from? And something strange before that happened. I was going to the loo, yeah, and was just sitting there peeing along, yeah, and I was looking at my skin. It was burned red. Or when I then looked into the mirror, everything like it looked like a sunburn. That was a bit before I went into that particular process. So this is what I would share as at the moment as an experience. I will not say anything more at this time. And yes, I do have also at least 2 experiences where I can say I was so-called out of the body, if you speak. So, and because I was conscious of that, so I went basically, when I was realizing that, like in the early morning stage, in a kind of a half dream, half wake state. So in that kind of state, and I felt like, oh, something is going into the body, that as an experience. And I was realizing and recognizing that. And I thought, oh, I can do that consciously. And then I was going out again and in again. And I thought, oh, wow, I can actually guide that on my will. Yeah, at least at that time. I don't say that I can do this at will. No. But at least as an experience. So that tells me definitely whoever I am, is not this body, because I could think, I could feel, and the experiences I have were even far more intense than like what I see now here in the so-called physical realms. Yeah. Okay.
Let me do this. Let me share because I think we are bumping up against the time, but let me share one perception, and then I'll leave it there. And this will be something that can just kind of cook. Yeah. When this event happens that bumps someone out of their role of life that we were discussing earlier, in the astral light of the planet, it's almost like a pebble being dropped into a stream, or I'm sorry, into a pool, right? And those ripples then go out. Anytime someone experiences that sort of bump out of the role, it creates that sort of ripple effect. And anyone who is on the same frequency, on the same wavelength as that, is suddenly kind of entrained. You know, the term entrainment, right? They're entrained in that rippling effect to where they can actually have the experiences of that role of life. What you're discussing here is really, you know, the end of one person's role. You know, whether or not they survived it is probably a whole different story, but regardless, that role ended, and in such an abrupt and such a traumatic way from the description of it, that it's really not surprising that, you know, someone who's sensitive as yourself, especially if you have had experiences like this, not necessarily this time, but in other times, you quite easily could be open to that. So this is where I'm going to leave it for today. I hope you guys benefited from this, and this will be a fairly regular thing. Just look for the invites, okay?
Awesome.
Orman, you're quiet again, but I can see you're saying your goodbyes as well. Yeah, the microphone's not working. It's all right. All right.
Orman, are you gonna join us?
Thank you for the session.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining.
So
much.
I've got to go to another one now, so it's like I filled in the day. You know what I mean? Good
Fair
to
enough.
meet you people. Nice to see you. You know, meet you, Mr. KK. Even if it's only been a few minutes, whatever. Yes, thank you, Pierce. You're going to do it again, are you?
Yeah, well,
Well, isn't this? I thought this is every week, Pierce. Isn't this? Are you just
it
gonna?
is. Yeah. And then the open ones, which this is not an open one, are just once a month.
So we're on your special list, are we?
Yes.
That's nice to know that,
I mean,
isn't it?
Actually,
Good
could I just pop something up? This is not a. This is just something that I'm growing with. There's this thing called, and this is a very biological term, so bear with me a little bit. Biological neural, I guess. There's this thing called somatic experiences.
Yeah.
I don't know if I see Orman and Pierce nodded your head, so you might have heard of it. And I took this class which talked about yoga and trauma, and how does trauma affect us? But this is very biological. Like they talked about the vagus brain and how trauma affects people, and how to learn from it and how to recognize that the trauma, wherever that trauma is. Some people say birth is a trauma. I think it is a trauma. And there's a lot of science behind it. I'm just going to leave you guys with this. It's a very interesting topic. I am a beginner again, just expanding my brain. But if Pierce, if you have experience or knowledge with that, or Orman, I would love to hear more talk. I was blown away. It was a 4-week, 2 hours per week class. So it's 8 hours of classes. So I was just sitting there talking, and I was like, wow. Just like you talk about the light bulb going off, that just went off when I did that class. It was an amazing experience. So
Right. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We can certainly work into it at some point. Consider what you want to come next time with an aim in mind. Okay, what you want to actually accomplish and discuss out of it. It's one thing to be sort of free, right? And it always will be that, but it takes on a whole different nature if there is something specific that you wish to gain and you can actually project into your own future life what that is. So with that, thank you all very much. Orman, thank you for
1 second. Hang on. So what are you actually up to anyway?
me.
I mean, you're a very mysterious kind of creature. you don't mind me saying so. You know, I mean, you come and go and you disappear and then you're back again, and you know, you see like a. So what are you doing? What are you trying to do? What is it? Are you
I'm just living it.
centre there or what? You had a big centre there with hundreds of people. What happened? Is it still going on?
No, had to let that go because of the I wasn't able to pay for it because of COVID. No one could meet. So this is going to be
bloody COVID's really interfered with everything, hasn't it? Yeah. We've got a big day here tomorrow, and everybody can now. The shops are open. That is whatever's left of the shops. You know, because half the town's now empty, right? And you know, but you know, tomorrow is the day when a lot of people might just meet their executioner without realizing it. You know what I mean? They think it's all over. I see them here walking down here in the high street, right? I mean, I'm really out in the middle of town here, literally. And they're walking along as though it's not happening. I feel like opening the window and saying, it's not over. Don't do this. Don't be like that. Don't give in. I mean, you know, watch it. And they're all standing there like spitting all over each other and talking and nothing. They don't know it, do they? Because in 3 weeks' time, they could be them in the intensive care, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Really, seriously. So, yeah, it's interfered with everything. And so it's gone, is it? I hope you kept their names and addresses.
Oh, yeah.
It's not gone, not even close.
There you go. Anyway, so we're going to get a special invite back again, are we?
What? I missed that.
We are going to get another special invite back again.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. I think it's actually the same one.
6 months or what?
Huh?
Is it going to be less than 6 months?
Yeah. You guessed it.
Pierce got
well, why don't you do it again next week? Maybe you never know.
I will. Yeah. No, it's every Sunday at this time.
I might even bring a couple of friends. You never know.
Please. Yeah.
I'll be like crap, I tell you, and they're both women.
Oh,
we need some women, you know, it's better with women, isn't it? Yes. I mean, I like the guys' night out, but I mean, you know.
Yeah. I think it's all, you know,
I'm talking about women with unwomen brains. They know these subjects as well, you know.
I've got my girlfriend here listening with me the whole time. She's off screen because she's camera shy. So we have a woman, but she's not said a word the whole time. I've seen her.
That's cheating, isn't it? That's cheating. That's really cheating. Yeah.
She's camera shy. You want to come over? She's smiling. She's happy to. She was here last weekend, but she's like. Yeah,
oh, well, you mean she was living there last weekend, or she was here for another meeting?
No. She lives with me. We live together.
Oh, I see. Right. Oh, I see. Well, she would be there last weekend, wouldn't she?
She's got her own things to work through. I think she wants to be here, but you know, life.
All women have their things to work through. You know, you just have
I think every person has their own things to work through. Women.
Yes, my friend. Thank you. Quite enjoyed himself. Yeah, I have to go too. So,
thank you, everyone. Next week,
Sachin.
Carl.
Yes.
I was right. Good. I was right then. That was a guess. Carl, thank you. Yes, and Pierce, I'll see you soon. Good night.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Please live well. See you soon.
Bye for now, everyone.